But I think we should switch to our first speaker. I mentioned him before, Bob Lodie. He's the Senior Vice President of Global Sales and Alliances Ideal Response. Bob Lodie brings over 23 years of executive sales leadership experience to the table, correct me if I'm wrong. And he led organizations like General Electric and Qualcomm. And I'm very excited to have him here. And Bob will tell us today of how innovation becomes a competitive weapon in sales organizations. So welcome, Bob Lodie.
Okay. Okay, thank you. All right.
Oh, and one last thing. Would you be so polite to maybe turn off your mobile phones? You might not get reception down here anyway, just in case, not to interrupt the speakers. Thank you very much.
Okay, how times have changed. I think that's an apropos comment at the beginning about the cell phones. If you think back 15, 20 years ago when you went to a program, is this coming through okay?
Yes.
Okay. You never heard that, certainly. What you heard was smoking is only allowed in this section and that type of thing. It's real interesting changes we've had in movie theaters, etc. And it fits right in with the topic that we're going to talk about here today. But by the way, I want to thank Thomas, where is he? For this this is the first annual event of this type. And oh, thank you. And it's a real sort of interesting approach to take where we bring people that never connect at all because we're all internet based now, and all of a sudden they show up, it's like, oh, look who's here and what they look like type of thing. So it's kind of interesting, and thanks for doing that, Thomas. Hopefully we'll have events like this, especially with my topic being technology. My guess is that if we were to meet in this room a year from now, we would all be having iPads probably, or something else that has come along, and the technology I'd be talking about would be a little different. But today I'm going to talk about that trend, how it's changing things for people that buy sales training, people that sell sales training, and people that either consult or facilitate sales training of some sort. So, but with a heavy dose of what the technology has meant for that. And it all started, in a sense, with this thing called the World Wide Web. That's what WWW stands for. We're so used to the acronym, we don't even think about it. Unless you were using it in 1991, 92, somewhere around there. And can anyone tell me what WWW stood for then? It stood for Worldwide Wait. Because of the response on the internet was, click and wait. Now, that just doesn't happen today. So we're going to see some of those other advances as well as we go. But what is the web? What is this thing called the internet? Not WWW anymore, but the internet. What has this done for us? Well, it's helped us to harness groups, just like this has brought together a group of people. Within companies, it helps harness the minds and hearts of them, and hopefully heavy on the heart side. And it helps them also to share ideas and other things in real time. Now, the momentum for that sharing, the whole idea, the culture of sharing, has really gotten a lot of momentum behind it, not from just the WWW thing, but from the applications and the kind of companies that have put themselves out there on the internet. And there's one in particular that I'm sure you're all familiar with. Whoops. And that would be this guy right here. Anybody in this room not know who that is? Anybody would dare raise their hand and say, I don't recognize Mark Zuckerberg. Oh, wait a minute, that's Mark Zuckerberg. Now this is a guy who's going to be worth, I don't know, 20 billion, 25 billion, something like that next month when he goes public. He's 28 years old. Not a bad thing for someone 28 years old. And interesting enough, if you saw the Wall Street Journal today, you saw that this company, that hasn't even gone public yet, bought another company for $1 billion. That company was a company that developed, a web app for, not a web app, a iPad app, and doesn't have any revenue, doesn't have a business plan, doesn't have any customers, but the two founders, they now have some piece of $1 billion. Crazy stuff. Leave the room and go start building an iPad application, right? Crazy stuff. Now, but what he has done, other than be the subject of a great movie. If you haven't seen it, you need to see the networking, whatever it's called, Social Network or something like that. A great movie. But what he's done is create this, enabled in a sense, people to connect on a social basis. That's also happened on a company basis, as you'll see, and companies are using that to leverage their reach and their ability to harness, besides the minds and the hearts, the ideas of the people. They're able to crowdsource, if you know that term. They're able to draw on all of that intelligence that's out there in their company. Before they weren't able to do that. Now, and they're able to do it, doesn't mean all of them are doing it. But if you're missing what the front line is talking to their customers about or what they're saying is going on in the marketplace, as a company, if you're missing that, you're going to miss business opportunity. Now, what has that got to do with sales training? And like I say, I'm going to make a big assumption that you're connected with sales training in some areas, whether it be sales process or sales methodology or sales skills training. And I'm going to give you some examples specifically in the sales skills area of where technology is going and what it's able to do for companies today. But first, you need to consider, if you've got a product out there, who your audience is. And if you teach or train people, how do they learn or how do they best learn? Company up in Oakland, California, Burson and Associates, well known within the technology sector of the business, does a lot of research. You can get their research reports for a basic membership of $25,000 a year. Some of their reports are 350 pages. I've seen them. I didn't been through the 350. I just know that when you pull the PDF up, it says one of 355 pages. And I look at the agenda and I look at the table of contents and I say, okay, fine, pass. That's it. But this company did a little study 4 years ago, and it looked at the learning styles. If you'll notice, we've got boomers, well, we got a whole bunch, but boomers, Generation Gen X and Gen Y in particular. And if you need to add, that right now, a boomer is not 44 to 62, a boomer is now 48 to 66, because this report is 4 years old. But these three segments make up probably 80%, 90% of the audience that any sales training organization or company has when it comes to training. And if you look to the far left over there where it says learning styles, you can see the differences between these three groups. And if you're a person who's delivering training or deciding how you're going to deliver it, you need to be aware of the fact that, well, this group, they're used to going to seminars. They like to have a seminar leader up the front telling them what they need to know and how to process that information. They're used to that. They're the people that like the one and done approach to training. You get down to the Gen X though, and you start to see a big change there. You notice over there it says that it's peer-to-peer and wisdom of the crowds. They think, and rightly so, that probably the best learning and the best training they can get isn't from the person in the front of the room. It's from the people that are in their business do exactly what they do every day. They want to hear that information. In fact, a lot of programs, annual sales training programs and conferences where they have always some sales training going on, they have breaks. They don't call them coffee breaks. They certainly don't call them smoke breaks. They don't call them cell phone breaks yet, and there's a reason for that, and that's because people are working on their cell phone anyway in the seminar. They don't need a break. They're down there moving away. You can see the finger, looking down furtively, just like drivers do it. But what they do is they call them networking breaks, because that opportunity is where a lot of the learning takes place. Formal learning is the stand-up seminar training. And Burson in another study reported that 60 to 70% of formal learning is a waste of time when it comes to sales training. People go to the seminar, they get all excited, they talk about it, they meet their friends, and what they remember a week later is what they served at the breaks and how much coffee there was and if the room was cold, but they don't remember what they learned. And they certainly aren't an ability to put it to use. So, but on the other hand, on the informal side, you've got three categories there. And the social one is the one that's really taking off, with a lot of companies that provide platforms, learning management systems, as an example, or Jive Software, for instance, is a company that is it's been called the business version of Facebook. But it's a place where now as a peer, since I'm never going to see you, I'm in Boston and you're in Idaho and someone else is down in Texas. We see each other once a year. How do I communicate with you about business? How do you help me and I help you on a regular basis? Well, that's what a company that that uses, that has the platform live Jive systems, that's what Jive systems enables. It enables that sharing of information. Facebook does it to some extent. I don't belong to Facebook because they've banned anyone my age. You know, you can't have Facebook. But, and I wouldn't know quite what to do with it. But Facebook, as I'm told, has a wall. You call it the wall, where you can go and post things. Well, that's nice. That's a good start. But how do I know that my counterpart in San Francisco has posted something on the wall unless they send me an email saying, check the wall, or, you know, or maybe there's an internal mechanism for doing that. And even then, it's sort of static. So what do we have that enables social learning? Well, there's Jive software. You'll see their name up there. You see SharePoint that comes out of Office 365. This is the ability for people in the company to share information. And there's other architecture as well, learning management systems, LMS. Training organizations love that because they like it because it keeps track of who went to training, when they went, because they get paid on people being trained. They don't get paid on what you get as a result of it, but if you show up and you've checked the box, they need to know that because they have a quota, they have to do that. That's how they get their bonus at the end of the year. I said 400 people through training. They were, half of them were asleep, the other half were working on their iPhones, but they were there. So they have all this collection of architecture, including, of course, the mobile architecture with you see it in commercials now, people that are using, essentially, they go to meetings and they go with an iPad. You've seen that commercial with the guy with the ink spot, because he's the only guy who showed up with a pen, and everybody else has got the iPad, and they laugh him out of the room, sort of thing. But it's pretty close to the truth. Now, here's the problem, or the challenge, that I've lived with for 30, 40 years, being involved in sales over that period of time, and that is that you spend a lot of money to send people to a sales skills program, a program that teaches them how to interact with customers and prospects. So they learn skills, they go and they maybe do some role plays. You've all been involved in role-playing situations. Great entertainment, doesn't have a lot of real sticky value to it. And when they leave that seminar, that program, they know about these skills, they know what works in the conversation, but it's like a piano lesson. You know, if anyone here has ever tried to play the piano or learn to play the piano, you have a couple of lessons, but you've got to practice in between. And there is no way to have that practice happen. They think, well, okay, they'll go back and their sales manager will give them that practice. They'll coach them. But the sales manager's busy watching the number, especially at the end of the quarter. Are we going to make the number? They're not interested in sales practice. They want you to go out and just close business, you know? So the difficulty is, what do you do when you have this separation, this big gulf between what it is you learn at a seminar, the content you learn at a seminar, and what you do with it, the execution? How do you deliver those product messages? How do you deliver your value proposition? How do you respond when there's a price objection? How do you react or respond when someone says, well, you know, I'm not quite ready yet, or I don't have any budget? Do you fold up your case, or you hang up the phone because it's over? Probably not. There's just not enough leads in the world to do that. So how do you get that conversation to continue? What do you say? And in the seminar, what builds this idea of practicing now creates a bridge between what you know and what you learn and what it is you do, the delivery part. But the practice part is the difficult part. Over here you've got a trainer. They've done their job. They've told you what to do. And maybe, if you're lucky, you've got a mentor or a coach or a manager that takes you through that practice part. But that's kind of unusual. So as a result, this is what happens. Unless you have all these other facilities, these other ways, coaching and mentoring, and create communities of practice on, say, something like a Jive software, or maybe have other things that are going on, what you learn in the seminar, you know, for a while it sticks and then it drops off rapidly. And that's why a lot of that training ends up being a waste of time and money for everybody. Makes you feel good, but that means, since that's the case, well, we've got to do it again next year, don't we? If you're selling sales training, that's great. I'll be there next year for you. And besides, if the food is good and the room isn't too cold and it's in the right kind of climate, I'm ready to go. Now, what we really want to have accomplished in sales skills training is proficiency at the point of conversation. When you are a job aid, such as a spec sheet, or a little video or a commercial or a handout. That's not what makes the sale. It's what you say to the person and how you say to it, and how you say it. Are your conversations with your client, are they delivered with confidence and authority and accuracy? Or do you toss out numbers that aren't true? And do they get the sense that you believe as much in your product as you want them to believe? In fact, you want them to believe enough to buy it, right? So all this has to come through, and you need to establish some trust and rapport, especially when you're prospecting. Otherwise, it's, yeah, no thanks, I don't need any, and boom, they click, and they're gone. So how do we do that? And the question becomes, what is the toughest, answering the hardest question in sales, where do you get those answers? In other words, when you are faced with a situation, whether it be a prospect or a customer, and whether it be a pricing objection, or you're in the middle of the sale and you're at the proposal stage, or right at the front end, why should I buy from you, or your competition is this, what do you say? The salesperson say, what do I say next? Or rather, what they're really saying is, what should I say next? Or what should I ask next? What is the right kind of response, the ideal response to that? And if you don't have that, well, what happens is for the salespeople is they have a fear of picking up the phone. That rejection is a big deal unless you're a little bit crazy, or you like strange meeting people on the phone for the first time. But that goes away very quickly. You might think it's fun until you get about 20 hang-ups because you're bothering people, and then you say, this isn't what I signed up for. That is what they told me it was going to be like. They said people are going to love to hear from you because we got a great product, but you don't get that chance. And we do a lot of work in the financial services industry. I'm working with a company now developing business in one of these types of applications that has taken advantage of the internet. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about it, not give you a lot of detail because I don't want this to be a product presentation, but it's clearly a leading edge product that is changing the game for salespeople because it takes the fear out of what a person should say next, and it takes advantage of all these social learning aspects and platforms. Now, here's the old model of training and sales skills development. Now, this group can't quite see this, but you've got typically a leader over here, a branch manager, who's responsible for any number of people, and that person's got to get the message out. Over here you have a group much like you'd have peer-to-peer learning, where you have people that are either in teams, they're either in physical teams, not likely in this day and age because people are so dispersed, or maybe they're all part of the same operation within a region or a branch, or maybe that's a team that sells one particular product line for the company and there's a specialist in 12 different states. So how do you work with those people? But there's the network side, the peer-to-peer side, and here's the top-down side. And if the manager needs to be delivering a message to his people or her people as to how to respond in certain situations, number one, they've got to come up with all the ideas. They've got to come up with all the answers. And those answers have to be timely, and some of those answers, well, they got from what they used when they were in sales. Now they've been promoted. So what worked last year and the year before should work this year and the next year, except we know that's not true. But that person is stuck in a position of pushing the idea down and trying to convince and force people, whereas over here, imagine if this person had a way of asking each of these groups the same question. In other words, giving a role play to all those various groups and having them within their own little groups of people respond to it and then say, pick the best response of the group. Now they're learning from their peers. They didn't think this person was such a hot ticket anyway. This person doesn't know everything, right? And they never see them, and maybe they even have a personality clash because they spilled coffee on the manager in the last sales conference that they went to. So this person says, who's that, Charlie? Yeah, you're Charlie, I remember Charlie. So they got a problem with him right off the bat. But over here it's peer-to-peer. And they know that they're facing the client, the people on their team are facing the same situations they are day in and day out. So pulling the idea is not only good and takes advantage of wisdom of the crowd, but it's fast and efficient because this method just never works. You don't know who's getting it and what they're going to do with it. So let's take a look. You can either be a facilitator in the middle, and if you're the only person that's talking, if you're doing all the telling, much like I'm giving a one-way conversation here, I'm telling you how to sell, what to say in this situation and that situation, you're getting the benefit of just my IQ, which isn't enough to take you to the bank every week, trust me. However, if you ask the group, instead of telling them, if you describe the situation like you do in a role play, and give them a chance to think about it, and then come back and respond using technology to do that, well, you can get the IQ of the whole group now. Now you're getting the wisdom of the crowds. And you know the expression, the crowd is always smarter than the smartest person in the crowd. So you're always getting a better answer. And because of the technology, you're able to scale it. That is, that manager, when he was coaching before or she was coaching before, be one-on-one, it was timely, they just didn't have time for it. With a technology, you can scale it, and with the use of technology, now you get, if you got 10 people on the team, 10-for-1 leverage on your time. Plus the quality of the coaching goes up as well. How does that happen? Well, besides just asking them and having them respond, they then are able to see how each person on their team responded and rate it. They rate their content and their delivery. And they do that easily on a browser, point and click, boom, boom, system captures it. It's anonymous, no one knows who rated what on them, but you all know who your team members are. And then those results are played back to them, shown back to them on a meeting of some sort, a go-to meeting or a live meeting. And the coaching becomes, the coach now doesn't have to be the smartest guy in the room or the smartest woman in the room. He just or she just becomes a facilitator. So the other aspect, the other thing that comes about is that we talked about this manager having all the answers. Well, if you're in a team, no one person's got all the answers either. But randomly within the team, you've always got somebody that's got a really good answer. So if you take these as, say, 20 typical questions, objection handling, listening skills, cold calling, any of these, and put those out there, if you ask one person on a scale of 1 to 5, they do well on some, like in the blue colors, 4.2, effective questioning. Lisa there, she does a great job with that, but who's going to help Lisa when it comes to consistent follow-up process or questions that she would use? Because she's a 2.2 there. That one she isn't good at. When you put her in a crowd with other people, it starts to vary. There's always somebody that's got a best response as rated by their peers. And because it's your peers that are doing the rating, you buy it. Okay, so that's the idea. What brings us to, what enables us to do that? It's these simple things. Google way back showed us the benefit of aggregating information, rating it, and so that when you do a search now, you get the most popular returns almost instantly. Wikipedia is wisdom of the crowds, isn't it? It's open source, just like open source software. Nobody gets paid to put it in, but it gets better and better because people are willing to share and put a lot of information into the system. Now you get down to how you create the connection with people, and you've got Facebook and some other things, and this allows you to have feedback between each other. In the case of this system that I was just talking about, they don't use Facebook, they just simply use a SaaS application to do that. And then the delivery connection, well, we've got iPads and iPhones now, but also computers you can do it with. Collectively, they provide you with some great verbal intelligence, which is archived and is rated, and it comes out from the crowd itself. So when we come back and look at what this all means, you've got a system that takes advantage of business and crowdsourcing and all these attributes that technology brings us to get the salespeople the best usable response in any number of situations. And they can pick the situations they're facing. You don't have to rely on you figuring out what those are. Now, I appreciate the time to be in front of you to talk about this and the advances of technology. I know that late in the afternoons, we finish up quickly on this so that we keep everybody alive and awake, because we've got a great agenda for you. And I think you'll find that in the future you will pay more attention to what Facebook is bringing. Check out Jive software if you're in that business of wanting to participate with other education. And if you want to have more information about this company called iReal Response, I can provide it to you as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Bob.